Well, it looks like the Star Wars YouTube channel has given us just a tiny peek of the version 4.0 update for Star Wars Squadrons. We really weren't expecting this definitely came out of the blue, but finally we get to see some gameplay of the B-Wing and the TIE Defender. We get to see what's inside the cockpit, we get a little bit of how it functions in-game, exteriors and stats for both ships. Now bear with me guys, this was all confined in like about 10 to 20 seconds of reveal time, but what I can tell you is that this update will be coming out tomorrow on the 11th of December. So this was definitely a little bit earlier than what we expected. They were saying mid-December, so we were thinking about the 15th to the 20th, but it looks like we're wrong. It's coming out tomorrow on the 11th, so get ready. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into the video. So first up, let's look through the gameplay. We finally get to see the 3D model of the B-Wing in action and its entirely new cockpit. Here, just like every other New Republic ship, you can put full power to engines, lasers, or shields. But what is very interesting is the little model of the B-Wing that you can see on the right side of the cockpit. If you don't notice already, we'll get into it just a little bit later in the video. First thing to notice is that you get tons of FOV vision, just like the A-Wing, but what is really noticeable is the speed. With full powered engines, you're only going at 99 speed. That is incredibly slow. If you want some sort of reference, the TIE Bomber with full power to engines, that goes at 114 speed. And for support ships, full power to engines is roughly around 129. And those speeds, as bombers and support players will know, is very slow. So the fact that the B-Wing can only go at 99 with full power to engines, guys, this is going to be a very slow ship. Rightly so, because it's probably going to be very powerful, but we'll get into the stats a little bit later. Next up, we have in-cockpit gameplay of the TIE Defender. Here we get a very unique design for the shielding on the right side of the cockpit, and also what is noticeable is that you can put full power to engines, lasers, or shields. The only other Empire ship that can do this is the TIE Reaper support class. Again, if we look at the speed, we can see at full power to engines, we're going at 129 speed. For comparison, the TIE Fighter runs at about 119, so 10 speed less. And to compare it to, say, the A-Wing, it goes at roughly 159 speed. So there is a bit of a gap between the speeds of an Interceptor and a much smaller gap between the speeds of a TIE Fighter to a TIE Defender. So as expected, this ship is a tiny bit faster. And as for firepower and toughness, we'll get back to that a bit later. One thing I think you can pretty much expect with the TIE Defender is that it's going to be a very maneuverable ship. Our theories and speculations of the TIE Defender was essentially the all-round jack-of-all-trades effectiveness of the TIE Fighter and the maneuverability of a TIE Interceptor. So I think this will definitely play really well in the hands of expert squadron players, especially if we see Interceptors get nerfed in version 4.0. Quickly going back to the B-Wing, we can see some more gameplay where the icon of the ship has changed. I expect that this is going to tell the player where the position of the ship is, because the B-Wing will be utilizing some gyro cockpit maneuvers, so it will play a little bit different from the other two bombers in the game. But now, let's look over the stats. So there is no numerical stats here, unfortunately. They're using the same graphical stat chart that they used in the reveal trailer. So for the TIE Defender, in order, it is toughness, then speed, then firepower. Toughness is definitely associated to shielding. That's because the TIE Defender will be able to shrug off AI attacks pretty easily compared to most other Empire ships. And for speed, we know that it's a little bit faster than the TIE Defender as well. And the firepower is looking pretty hefty too. Now, I would assume that the TIE Defender is probably not going to be as strong in firepower than the TIE Fighter. Otherwise, what would be the point in playing the TIE Fighter? It would make it completely redundant. So I'm assuming that the TIE Fighter is probably going to have a bit more fire output. And if not, then I'd assume that the rate of fire will be a lot slower for the TIE Defender. And you'd probably lose laser power just as fast as in a TIE Interceptor, for example. Those are my theories and speculations on that one. But of course, it really comes down to maneuverability, which we aren't getting in these graphs. For the B-Wing, in order, it is firepower, then toughness, then speed. Now, firepower is insanely high, and I am not surprised by that. I think this thing is going to be insanely strong for firepower. And honestly, I think you're going to need to absolutely focus on these guys when you're defending. So much so that if there's like an X-Wing on your frigate already, and you see a B-Wing coming your way to the frigate as well, I'd say focus on the B-Wing. You need to make sure that thing doesn't get anywhere near to objectives. Toughness is pretty much average as expected. I don't think this ship will be any more tougher than a Y-Wing. And speed, as expected, is absolutely slow. I think this would be a very effective ship in team comps. If you're able to protect your B-Wing player and get it to the flagship or a frigate, my god, they will tear that thing apart. The next thing is that we were able to take a little peek at custom matches. So here you can save settings for certain game modes that you've created. So you've got the basic settings, which I'm assuming what game mode it's going to be, what map, privacy level, match time, so on and so forth. You got restrictions, I'm assuming what ship you're allowed to play in this game mode, maybe a few auxiliaries that you can't use, so on and so forth. Modifiers, that'll definitely be the most interesting thing. That's where you can tweak how powerful a certain ship is going to be. I can definitely expect people to make some sort of boss mode game mode where you've got 5 people against one massive ship. It'd be really cool to have the standard 4 classes of the New Republic go against this insanely strong TIE Defender. I think that'd be absolutely cool. And for the fact that you'll be able to search and join custom game modes, which we didn't see in this preview, unfortunately. You'll be able to play that game mode at any time with a random amount of people. It's going to be so cool. What's really interesting is that you'll be able to create the match as a spectator. This is going to be amazing for esports events like Operation EcksToo that'll be coming out in like later this December, I think. I seriously can't wait for this update. This is going to completely change the game. And finally, let's look at components. Now, we already know 4 of these are currently out already, that being iron rockets, piercing torpedoes, rocket turret, and boost extension kit, but there is currently 3 here that we have not seen before. The first one, the ion beam. Now, I'm assuming this is going to just be the mean beam, but ion version, so shredding through those shields super quick. This will definitely make bombers feel a bit more effective because they can't use ion torpedoes, they only have the ion bombs, and this definitely feels a lot more effective without having to get too close to the frigate. Advanced power system, I don't know what this is. I know it's a setting in options, so I have no clue what this is going to be as a component. I have no opinions on this one. We're just going to have to wait and see tomorrow. And the gyro control model, I'm assuming that's going to be B-Wing only, and that's probably going to allow you to have that gyro cockpit motion we talked about earlier. Now, I don't know. This might be a mandatory component for the B-Wing. Maybe not. I don't really know. It would be definitely interesting that this is the only component you can have on like an auxiliary for the B-Wing. Wouldn't make sense though. I definitely think you should be allowed to have 2 components for the B-Wing, but I'm not going to put too much speculation in this one. I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. We'll be able to see about this tomorrow. And that pretty much wraps up the little preview we got for the update that is coming to Star Wars Squadrons tomorrow. What are your thoughts on it? Is there anything here that you think is missing? Do you think there'll be more in the update tomorrow? Definitely let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll certainly be reading all of them. I know you guys were super excited for this. I am as well. I am really interested about how the TIE Defender will work. The stats on the preview definitely look like it's a very strong ship. Of course, the graphs aren't going to be totally accurate, but my theory in a previous video mentioned where we talk about how the TIE Defender would work in Star Wars Squadrons, I'd really love it if you could only run 1 auxiliary compared to 2 in the TIE Fighter, and in return, you just get a lot more general stats. So speed, firepower, and toughness, for example. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see. But with that all said and done, guys, I've been Charlie, you've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you tomorrow with Star Wars Squadrons update. Take care, guys.